All right, so let's begin this session. So we were discussing about the control flow of a program. So we started this workshop 3, question 1. So what we were doing was we were trying to implement the if-else structure of a high-level program. So you might be familiar with your first year knowledge about the else if structure. So in that one, what it does is it will shift the control flow of a program. So I defined what is control flow last week. So if you could open, so just open your source file. So in my machine, I stored this in this directory. So I need to change into that directory. And I stored it in a02.asm. So I want to open it. Right. So I defined that control flow is the order which a program is actually flowing. That means it is executing. That means when the program starts, not only assembly, any other program start, it will execute its instructions sequentially unless it is parallel programming. There are programming languages which also execute all codes at once. That is known as parallel execution. But normally, uh, languages like C and assembly, they execute sequentially one after another. That means after this instruction will be executed. After that, this one, and so on. So the natural control flow is sequentially from top to bottom. So I also mentioned about the instruction pointer. So instruction pointer, when this instruction is executed, instruction pointer or that register points to the address of the next instruction. So today, by implementing if-else structure, what we are going to basically do is alter this natural flow or natural control flow. The sequential flow we are going to alter. That means for that one, we have a command known as jump. Jump. If we jump, so when this instruction is called, if we call jump and with another address, then we can shift the instruction pointer's address to the particular address that we refer. So that address that we refer is basically stored as a label. For example, uh, if I enter a jump statement here, so jump is in assembly JMP, right? So as the address, we can pass a name. That one is known as a label. That address is known as a label. So if we want to shift the next instruction to this particular address, we can use jump statement. So we can say jump label, and we can store the address inside this label at any place we want. So if I say label here, and we have to pass a colon mark. We have to pass a colon mark. That means this will store the address of this location. So this location is having a particular address. So when you come and call this jump statement, instead of going to this instruction, the program control flow will shift to this particular point. Then from this point, the normal control flow, sequential flow will occur from this statement to this statement and likewise. Unless you have another jump statement to go to some another place. So we'll just make this one and see whether it is against any assembling error. So you can see there is no error. That means this program executed properly. So we come here and we don't, so we jump means we are not printing this text label hello world. So if we execute, the text should not be printed. So you can see the text was not printed. It came here, it said this registry, but it did not print. This is this one because this interrupt was not called, because these three statements or instructions were not executed. From when the instruction pointer came to this instruction, then the instruction pointer was shifted to this instruction, then it just exit. This program did not execute these three instructions. So that is what we are going to do in if else structure also. So before knowing if else structure, so this is just jumping to another address. That means shifting to another address. So we have something known as conditional jumps. We have something known as conditional jump. So what we'll see what are conditional jumps. So conditional jump means if some condition is true, then it will jump, otherwise it will not jump. For example, jump equal. So this is an instruction. What it will do is jump. So I have to comment out this everything. Jump only to the, so if I say label 2, jumped to the given address if and only if the previous statement is equal. If the previous statement gives equal. So what is meant by that? So in conditional jumps, we have to always proceed or incorporate this conditional jump statement along with a comparison operator. So in high level program, you might have seen something like this. If x is equal to 9, then do this, else do that. So this is the structure of a high level program. So to get this condition, so we in conditional jumps there should be a condition. So to get this condition, you have to do that with a comparison operator. So for that one, in assembly we have an instruction known as compare. So in 3 letters it says CMP, standing for compare. That is comparison operator. So what it will do is it will just compare CMP. The arguments are just two registers or two memory locations. For example, A comma B, or if I say in particular as registers, RAX with RBX. So what it will do is compare RAX with RBX. Compare not the address, value actually. Value of RAX with RBX. So when you refer to a register, for example, RAX or any register, this register is having both an address and a value. What it will do is this comparison operator will not bother about the address, but it will compare the value in RAX with RBX. If RAX is equal to RBX, then it will jump to this state, this address. It will jump to this particular address. If RAX is not equal to RBX, then it will not jump. What it will do is it will omit this instruction and the normal control flow sequentially one after another. That means the immediate statement after this jump statement will be executed. Immediate statement after this jump statement will be executed if RX is not equal to RBX. So instead of registers, you can even pass a value. So this will check value of RX with 2. That means it will check whether RX is equal to 2. If RX is equal to 2, then it will shift the address of the instruction pointer, this one, to this particular label's address. Then it will shift the instruction or execute the instruction at this address instead of the next instruction if these are equal. So similarly, we have a set of conditional jump statements. So we can imagine JL. So what is JL? Jump if less than. JLE. I'll just copy paste this one. Jump if less than or equal. So I hope you all can hear me and see the screen. For me, it is showing us sharing screen and recording. Okay. So it is jump if less than or equal. So similarly, we have for greater than JG. Jump if greater. JGE. Jump if greater than or equal. So these are the conditional jump instructions to check whether a given condition is occurred. So conditional jumps must always follow with a comparison operator. So before each and every one of these conditional jumps, this condition must be checked, comparison operator. In comparison operator, this will be checked, and if this, it will check this whether this one is equal to this one, whether this one is greater than or this one, whether this one is less than or this one. And according to the jump instruction that you are having, this will perform the corresponding operation. So it will check actually the first argument. So if in jump less than, if the first argument, that means Rax is less than 2, it will jump. If Rax is greater than, in this JG, if Rax is greater than 2, so actually you can mention here jump if first argument less than second argument. Right, so for this one also you can imagine the same. If the first argument is less than the second argument, then if you have jump less than, then it will shift the execution instance. That means it will shift to this label. So that is the background that you need to create this program. So what is the required content in the program? So we are going to create if else structure. We are asked to set Rax to 1. So we'll set Rax to both 1 and 0 and compare it with the value 1. So if it is equal, we have to print Rax is 1, otherwise it should print Rax is not 1. So a simple if else structured program. So we have to create two variables to print those two statements. So I'll say Rax is 1. So I'll delete these comments, so you already know these things by now. If you have referred the previous content actually. Right, this is my first print statement, and similarly I have to create another one. Rax for Rax is not equal to 1. I'll say this one as text label 2 and this one as Rax is not 1 and this one as size 2 and this one should be text label 2. It should be text label. Right. So I'm going to create a constant. That means for the value that we input, I will call it as input. Input. So we are going to create a constant by using this keyword equal. Equal. I'll say for the first time it is equal to 1. Input is equal to 1. This is a constant. So we have initialized it. So we have to declare them under section.data because it is a place to store initialized variables. So in this program, we don't have any .bss section because we don't have any uninitialized variable. Simply. Okay. So first we are going to compare. So in conditional jumps, I told you we must compare. Okay. So the first thing that we are going to compare is we are going to compare. So we are asked to compare RAX with a particular value. So we are going to compare RAX with what? With the input. We are going to compare RAX with the input. If so, now we have to call the jump statement, but conditional. So for if else if structure, we can use JE, jump if equal. Jump if equal to for example, I say label 1. I change the place where this label 1 occurs actually later. And we have another one, so I forgot to mention. So that is jump if not equal. That is denoted by JN. That means if the comparison operation fails, that means the given two arguments are not equal to each other. The value of the two arguments are not equal to each other. That is jump if not equal. Jn. So what we are doing is, if this is true, we have to jump to one label. If not, we have to jump to another label. That is the simple way this if else structure functions, right? So what we are going to do, if it is equal, that means RAX is 1, we'll print. So I'll mention this one as label 1. Is label 1, we have to print RAX is 1, that is text label 1. Okay, so this set of instructions we have to follow, and after that we have to exit. After that we have to exit. So what we are going to do is we have to call sysexit. So these three set of instructions will call sysexit. If it is equal to 1, it will print RAX is equal to 1 and exit. Otherwise, if it is not equal, if the input is not equal to the value in RAX, then it will print. So before that, we have to copy. Otherwise, we cannot do this one. So we have to set the value of RAX to this input. So what is the way of copying? MOV, move. That is copy. In English, it is copy, but we call it move. Move RAX to the value of input. We have to first set the value of RAX to 1, otherwise it will definitely not 1, or the value in input. Then we can compare the value and we can perform the corresponding jump. So if it is equal, it will jump to this particular location, but not here. And it will execute these instructions sequentially, and once it comes here, it will exit. So what will happen if these three statements are not there? It will just carry on executing this instruction even for label 2. So this should be label 2. It will continue because even though this is a label, it will not care when it is executing sequentially from top to bottom. When it comes here, it will just shift to this one. But since we have exit, that means we end the program here, definitely it will not come into this label, right? So I'll just copy paste this one again here. And in this one, just I have changed, this jump label should not be here. That one I previously mentioned just to explain you the concept. So this one should not be there. Remove those jump statements in this one. Remove the jump. And this should be text label 2. So what is text label 2? It is RAX is not equal to 1. Is it true? Yes. Because we will come to label 2 if this is not equal. If input or value, this one is not 1, so in this one we have set it to 1, no? We have to, sorry, so change this one. So in the first one it will set RAX to 1 and it will compare with the input. So if it is 1, it will move its address, next address of the instruction to here, and it will execute this one and exit. If this is RAX is not equal to 1, then it will shift its execution point to here and execute these instructions and exit. So this should be size 2 because text label 2 stands for RAX is not 1. And these are just comments, they won't be executed. Right, so that is the program, expected program. So we can check whether this program is functioning. So just first make the program, type the program codes correctly. So we set RAX to 1, then we compare it with the input value. And if it is equal, we execute these statements. If it is not equal, we execute these statements. So that is simple if-else structure. If-else structure. If it is equal, this one, else this one. Okay, we'll make this one. There is an error. So how to identify error? In this program, ANO2.asm, in line 20, we have instruction expected. So we can go to the line 20. JN. Instruction. Let me check whether this is jump JNE, I think. Okay. So this should be not JN, this is JNE, jump not equal. So you can make that correction, JNE, jump if not equal. JNE. If it is equal, JE, otherwise JNE, jump if not equal. Okay, now we have set this input to 1. So if this program is correct, we should get this statement as the output. RAX is 1. We will check whether it is working. So we have made already. So we can call this one in this directory .this exe.x. So we get RAX is 1. So what you can do now to check whether the other one is working. So to check whether the other one is working, you can change this one to any other number. So I'll change this to 20. input. So what it will do, it will the program will set RAX is to 1, but it will compare RAX is with input. Now what is the input? Input is 20, RAX is 1. So these are not equal. So jump equal will not be executed because these are not equal. But instead of that, uh, this will be executed because in every case this jump conditional jump statements look for the last comparison instruction. Always conditional jump look for the last comparison operator. Even if you have thousands of conditional jump instruction, it will check the last comparison operator. So if you had another one, comparison of RBX with 2, this jump conditional jumps will not check this one, but this one. It will check the last comparison operator. If you have sets of comparison operations, it will check the last comparison operation. Right. So remember that I just mentioned. Okay. So according to that, since we have this one not equal, it should print RAX is not 1. So since we did change, we have to compile it or assemble it again. So we can call the make utility. So what will it do does is it will just call these two instructions. So I have already explained this one. You can refer the tutorial 2 or video lecture 2 if you don't understand this one at this stage. So you can call again exe.x. So you get RAX is not 1. So that means our program must have worked correctly. Because now it is not done, so this is not executed, so the program will not come here. Instead, it will go here and print RX is not 1, then exit. Sorry. So I hope this is clear to you and you can understand this one. So if you can understand this conditional jump, so then that's good. So that we can go for more control flow, advanced control flow programs. Okay, so I have told you to create a new directory to each and every workshop you do. So we'll follow that one. So I will change directory to desktop. You have to call it with root directory desktop. And in that one, I'm going to copy this workshop 3. So 3 part 1 and have to do it recursively. To workshop 3 part 2. Sorry. Workshop 3 part 2. So you can see a new directory was created. That means exact copy of this one. If you don't understand this, just use the graphical user interface. So I'm going to change directory. Now I'm in desktop directory inside this directory. Workshop 3 part 2. And now I'm going to open the editor. So I think, okay, we'll see what is the second program expected output. So in the second program, so we are okay with the first program now. I already demonstrated how the first program is doing. So it asks us to implement the if else structure. So it is just if else structure is a basic shift of program control flow. If some condition is met, just shift to another address, and otherwise shift to another address and execute. So in the second one, we are asked to create a subroutine which prints hello to the screen. So we have to understand what is a subroutine. Okay. I'll just delete these comments and so what is a subroutine? So in a subroutine, in a normal jump statement, we will shift the instruction flow or the control flow to a particular address and then execute those statements, and we don't expect to come back to the same instruction. For example, in this program, we jump to this label one if this operation or if this comparison operation Rx is not one, we jump to this address and we never came back here, and we never came back to the original instruction. In a subroutine, so I'll mention, in a subroutine, a jump is occurred, or in other terms, control flow alters to another instruction. In a subroutine, the control flow varies, but necessarily, that means always, necessarily comes back. Or in other words, in programming languages, we call this returns. Returns to the same instruction. So it is just like a jump, but in normal jump, after executing those set of instructions, we'll never come back in normal jump statements. But in a subroutine, that's why it is called a subroutine. So routine means a task which takes place, that means a scheduled task like something, routine. So subroutine means it will do a particular task, assigned task, and come back to the same statement. So that is the meaning of subroutine. So what we are going to do is we are just going to print a statement to the screen using a subroutine. So we will only need one text label. We'll only need one text label. So that is simply hello. Is simply hello. And these ones are not required. No? This is not required, and we will not begin with label one. So we start printing. So we call this interrupt. Before that, we have to set these registers. We call this one print to the screen. What is going to be printed is this one, but in this one, so we don't need this one also. Label 2, no need. So delete those instructions. Right, so I define subroutine here. So when we print, this is one, we are not printing like this, but we have to do this using a subroutine. Subroutine should be called. Subroutine should be called. For that, use call. So call is the instruction for calling a subroutine. Instead of JMP or jump, you have to use to call or jump to a particular subroutine. You have to call, you have to mention this instruction call, use call. And at the end of subroutine, the return statement must be there. So return statement is RET. So to make this one differ from normal text, I'll use capital. In here also, call, these are instructions. At the end of subroutine, return statement must exist to come back to original instruction. Right, so we have to comment these things out. Okay, so when we begin the program, we'll just have to call. I'll name the label as subroutine 1. Just to give you understand, you can use any label name you want. So this subroutine 1 is just a label name. So what a label does is, so I must have explained previously, label stores the address of an instruction. Label stores the address of an instruction. So this subroutine is nothing but a label. So we must define these instructions inside a subroutine. So we can define this one inside the subroutine. Subroutine means this label. So I'll mention this one as subroutine 1. So to identify it as a label, you have to use this colon mark to identify it as a label. So when the program begins, it will call the subroutine, and the program execution or the control flow will shift to this one, and then it will print this text hello. And as I have mentioned here, in a subroutine, you must come back to this statement. So you have to call return. You have to call return. You have to call the subroutine. Then at the end of the subroutine, that means the end of this set of instructions, you have to come back to this instruction. Then the program will exit. Call subroutine, execute these instructions, then come back and return. That means return will set the instruction pointer's address back to this address where this subroutine was called, and after that the normal program execution, normal control flow will occur from top to bottom. And since you are exiting, it will not come back to this label again. So that is the basic function of a subroutine. I hope you understood. So we don't need this one also. We print this text label with this size. We execute this instruction and come back. That is the difference between a normal jump and a subroutine. In subroutine, it will shift the program execution and execute a set of instructions sequentially, and then it will return the original call statement and print and execute again back after this instruction. This one, this one, this one. Okay, you can make and see whether it is working. Okay, successfully assemble and execute. So it prints hello and exit. That is the normal functioning of a subroutine. I hope you understood. Okay. So having understood that one, we can, I think it's clear. If you have anything unclear about subroutine or jump statements, you can ask me now. Right, it seems that the concept is clear. So we'll shift to the next program. So we are asked to modify workshop to Q2 to be run using subroutines. So what was workshop to Q2? Workshop to Q2 was this program. Enter the name, then user will enter his name, and program should print hi name enter. So you can go back to your program and get the code back. So first identify where is workshop 2Q part 2. Okay. So what I will do is, what you can also do is change the directory to desktop and copy paste workshop 2 part 2 as workshop 3 part 3. So you can navigate back using arrow keys and copy paste workshop 2 part 2 as workshop 3 part 3. We are going to modify that program. Copy workshop 2 part 2 as workshop 3 part 3. Even though I cannot see this, okay. Workshop 3 part, okay, part 3, no? Workshop 2 part 2, no such directory. Workshop. I cannot change, so I should go back. I should be in desktop directory to do that. Otherwise, it will not work. So now I can do it. Workshop 2 part 2 to workshop 3 part 3. Okay. The directory was copied and created. So now I can change the directory to workshop 3 part 3. Okay. And using gedit, I am going to open. So three, okay, maybe due to some reason I don't have that program. Okay, we'll just make that program again. No? Let me check whether it is yeah. Sure. True. Here I have. I'll just copy and paste into my current directory. Oh yeah, it's my current directory. I think it is here. Okay, now I will open this one using gedit. Okay. So this program just asks us to. So this is a program that we have already created. We have us. So this was in input and output. That means getting the user input and printing to the screen. Just that one. So we started the program and executed each and every one of these sequentially. Now we are asked to use our knowledge of subroutines to create this program. So if you have understood subroutines, now you must be able to do this very easily. So what I will do, I will just call four subroutines and call this one again and again. I'll call this one again and again. So that's it. So you can see what I'm doing here. So when the program begins, I'll call. So to give you correct understanding, so this is what text label 1. Call, I'll say enter name. That is just the name of my subroutine or label, enter name. And I'll store this set of instructions inside this subroutine. Enter name in subroutine, and you must come back to this one. So you must say return. You must say return. So what was this? I'll say this one print enter name. Is print enter name. And the second one as input name, because the user have to input the name. So I'll just store it as a subroutine. Input name. We have to return. You have to return. And then your name is call I'll say just print2. Call print2. And this is a subroutine, so you have to return. And then call at last print name. So I'll name this subroutine as, I cannot, only the subroutine name is here. And you have to return. And even these set of 3 instructions to terminate a given program. Let me setting this one to 1, 0, and this one we can implement that one as a subroutine. So I'll just say exit. The name of this subroutine as exit. So when you want to in a conditional statement, in conditional jump statements, if you want to call this exit, instead of these three statements, you can just call exit. That will save the code space, and the coding, the program source code will be easier to read and understand when you use subroutines rather than a whole bunch of statements one after another. The subroutines will make the programmer to write the code easily, and even any other third person to understand it easily. So that is an advantage of subroutine. So even the exit, program exit, you can just call it like a function. So subroutine is like a function in high-level programs without arguments. Without arguments, a subroutine is a function in high-level program. I mean, analogous to high-level program function without arguments, right? So this is just the code that I expect. So we'll see whether this one is working. Make it successfully created. We'll execute. Enter your name. Okay, the program worked. So the same program that we created without subroutines sequentially, one after another, you can implement using the subroutines. So that is the end of the third part of this workshop. That is a demonstration how subroutines can be used inside your programs. Right, so since the time is up, so we'll wind up this session here. So you can go to your next meeting if you don't have any questions. You're right.